Today I thought we would make this cute little recipe album. Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome. I have a recipe album that I made and wanted to kind of share with you guys how I made it. So this will be a process video. It's a folio, and I used a tutorial from Rosa Kelly Scrapbooking for the cover, and then I just tried to channel my inner Debbie from Project 39 mini albums on coming up with some pages. I didn't want this to be super elaborate, so it's not like a full-on scrapbook. It's just I wanted an album that I want to make some for my sisters as well as me, and just to put some of my mom's old recipes in. So it didn't have to be huge. It didn't have to have a ton of pages. It's not going to have a ton of embellishments. It's really just a place to store some of the recipes and maybe, if there are any pictures or anything that we want to say about it. So this is the basic album that we're going to make. This isn't decorated. It's just kind of the basic process, the basic design that we will be making today. It's about an inch thick spine, and like I said, it's a folio, so it opens out both ways. There are some waterfall pages here on the left with pockets. I thought that would be a good place to slide some of the recipe cards in. And then we have 6 double-sided pages here again that we can add recipes to, whether we add tuck spots to them or pockets or the little photo corners. I haven't decided yet. And then there's a thicker pocket back here in the back that some of the bigger cards can go on. The pages are 6 by 6. The album itself is 6 by 6.5. These are 5.5 inch wide pockets by 4.5 inches tall. And then we have just an extra spine over here. I did use magnets to hold them together, and like I said, the cover still needs to be finished decorating and the recipe album, but I just wanted to kind of show you what it looks like, and then we will get into the process of making it. For the cover, I cut several pieces of chipboard, and this is just chipboard I had in my stash. I cut one at 6 by 6.5, one at 6.5 by 6.5, one at 3 by 6.5, and then 2 at 1 by 6.5. And then I have 2 sheets of 12 by 12 pattern paper that I'm kind of gluing together to create one long continuous sheet. And I trimmed it down to 9 inches by 12 inches just so it was a little bit shorter. And then I'm going to use that to cover the chipboard to create the cover of my recipe folio. And then I'm just going to take those chipboard pieces, just using some art glitter glue and gluing those down, burnishing them. And I'm trying to space them out about 1/8 of an inch. Like, I'm not measuring exact, but I'm just I want to create a little bit of space in between each piece because that will help create my spines. And then at times I do turn it over just so I can burnish it down a little smoother, like all the pieces together. I'm going to get this last piece down and then burnish it and turn it over, kind of burnish everything again. And now I start to create my fold and realize, oh yeah, I need to trim off that end. And I just kind of eyeballed it. I was trying to leave about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches on that end, so I had room to kind of fold in. And I'm going to come to all 4 corners and cut at an angle, kind of like across, and that'll just kind of help make the corners fold in a little cleaner. I'm using 1/2 inch score tape here. I'm just adding that to the very edge of all 4 sides of the paper and burnishing it down with my bone folder. And then I'm coming in with some art glitter glue again and just filling in kind of where the score tape didn't go just to make sure that I get a really good hold. Like the score tape will like do the immediate hold, and then the art glitter glue will like make sure that it's going to hold even better. So I do the 2 long ends first, and then I'm coming down to the each side and doing that same process. And now my cover is covered on the front, and now I'm just kind of folding it in just to create kind of the fold lines so I know where my spine's going to be. I trimmed 2 pieces of pattern paper 2.5 by 6.5, and this is just going to reinforce the spines. I ended up doing it on all the albums that I made for me and my sisters, but I just figured it would help since there's a lot of bending and corners tend to tear first. I just wanted to reinforce them a little bit just so that it would help the albums last a little bit longer. And then each time I add a layer there, I'm kind of making sure I redo where the creases are going to be in the album. So on the inside, I'm covering up the spine there, the chipboard, and these pieces are 2.5 by 6 inches. I didn't go all the way to the top and the bottom just because the paper, that red pattern is only 6 by 6, and so it wasn't going to go all the way to the top. So I just thought I'd be consistent and trim these pieces down to 6 inches as well. And now I'm coming in with my embossing tool and just like really reinforcing those fold lines. Now that I've added several layers there on the spine corners, I want to make sure I'm going to get like a good clean crease, a good fold. It does bubble up a little bit, but once I add all the paper layers, you're not going to really see that. So I have 2 6 by 6 pieces, and one of them I cut down to 5 3/4 by 6, and that's going to go on that far left side right there. And then I have a second piece that I just left at 6 by 6, and that's going to go in the middle and cover up that middle part. So I used primarily 6 by 6 paper, and then on these albums, but then I did bring in some 12 by 12 because I did have to cover, the outside of the cover, and then I had some left over, so I used it throughout. So I am adding magnet closures on this, and so I'm doing 2 magnets, and I'll link these below. When I was looking up scrapbooking magnets, and Basic Gray came up, and so I love Basic Gray paper. They make great products, and so I decided to go with those, and they are self-adhesive, and it was like the perfect amount that I needed, and I still have I have like a separate pack left over of smaller ones, but it was this pack of the bigger ones was exactly what I needed to make all 4 of the albums for me and my sisters. So they are heavy duty. So here I'm just covering up that right hand flap, and I do score tape on the outside, and then I'm using the art glitter glue on the inside just so I can get a good hold, and wanted to add a little pattern there on the right hand side. So now my cover is completely covered on the inside and the outside, and next I'm going to move on to my waterfall pieces over on the left side. So these are 5.5 by 4 3/4, and then I scored at 1/4 from the top, and so that will give me waterfall pages that are 5.5 by 4.5. And then I have 1.5 by 5.5 inch strips here that I'm just creating pockets. And my thought was this is a great place I didn't want to adhere any recipe cards permanently in this album. I wanted to make them so you can pull them out and take them to wherever you're going to cook with. They don't have to be in the album. You don't have to take the whole album, to the stove with you or whatever. So I decided to create some pockets on the waterfall just so that the recipes can tuck in. You can pull them out. So I just picked a couple different patterns of the pattern paper that I was working with and created those strips. And I'm just gluing on the two sides and the bottom just to create a little pocket. And so now I will crease the top score line that I made, and I will use 1/4 inch score tape to adhere these down. So I'm just putting them on all of the pieces first, and I'm putting it on the back side, and then I will come in and like remove the strips and start gluing them all down. And this, the first score tape, the 1/2 inch score tape I used was actually score tape. This is the 1/4 inches from scrapbook.com. So I'm trying to eyeball here, like just a little bit from the top and then have an even amount on both sides. And then I start lining them up like one right underneath each other, and then I realize I'm a little bit crooked, and so you'll see where I start trying to compensate for that. So there'll be a little bit of a gap on that left hand side when I'm like gluing them down, so that I can kind of have them lay straight so that there's an even amount on the left and right side there. So this is the one I think that has the biggest gap. So those are all down, and I'm just showing you that there's a pocket. So we have now 5 pockets, and now we're going to add a kind of deeper pocket there in the middle. This is a 3.5 by 6.5 inch piece, and I just used, it was what was left at the bottom of a 12 by 12 piece. It has the branding strip left at the bottom, and I just left it because I'm just going to score it and hide it anyway. So I just scored at the edge of the branding strip there, and then at a 1/4 inch from either side. And then just adding some wet glue again and adhering my pocket to the middle there. And so that gives me a little bit deeper pocket, and so more recipe cards can be tucked in there. I know like the waterfall on the left hand side, those are going to be for smaller cards. Like bigger cards can fit here in that middle pocket. Now I'm going to add the pages. I'm going to have pages coming from the left and right. I used cardstock, trimmed it down to 6 by 6.5, and then scored at 1/2 inch from one end. And so that gives me a 6 by 6 page. So I'm just folding and kind of creating my crease there, so I know when I'm trying to lay out my paper on those pages that I can make sure I get it like centered. I trimmed my 6 by 6 paper and my 12 by 12 paper down to 5 7/8 by 5 7/8, and so that gives me just a little bit of white border around all of the pattern papers. And again, this is a mix of a 6 by 6 pad and a 12 by 12 collection, and so I trimmed them all down to the same size, and you would never know that they were from different sized pads. And I'm just using my wet glue again. This time I think I've got my Barely Arts glue because it comes out a little bit thinner, and adhering these to my pages and burnishing them down really good with my bone folder. And it's nice because both the 6 by 6 and 12 by 12 are a pretty good thickness, and so you don't see the glue, or you don't even really feel any glue bumps underneath, especially once I've burnished them down really well. And I'm just trying to find a good mix of kind of like the scenes, the like baking scenes, and then some like regular patterns on all 6 pages, just so that it's not all, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue them in 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and so I want to make sure that it's kind of balanced. And like I said, for the cover, I used a tutorial from Rosa Kelly Scrapbooking. She made a bigger album, and I adjusted it to the 6.5 by 6 album that I wanted to make. And so I will link her original tutorial below. But like I said, I kind of changed the sizes, and she made a whole album. I didn't use her page ideas. I just used the cover. I just liked that folio style cover. And then, like I said, I tried to channel Debbie from Project 39 mini albums. She makes a lot of amazing albums, and she makes like some really great detailed pages, and I knew I didn't need elaborate pages for a recipe album. I didn't need like all of the pockets and the flip outs and all of that. But I did try to channel her creativity on coming up with, she does a lot of waterfalls in her albums, and so I was like, oh yes, the waterfall, that I can use that. And then I just did some basic pages for the rest of it. So if you want a more detailed album, be sure to, I will link Project 39 mini albums down below as well. She has a lot of great tutorials and ideas as well. So like I said, I am making these albums for me and my sisters, so there'll be a total of 4, and I'm just using them to add some recipes from my mom, my grandma. Once my mom passed away, we went through her recipes, and somebody has them and we're getting together here coming up at the end of this month, and we're going to go through pictures and recipes. And so I thought I would create some recipe albums that we can store some of the family favorites in and try and preserve some of those family favorite recipes and recipe memories. So finally finishing up this last page here, and then I'm going to use some more 1/2-inch score tape on all of the sides there of these pages. And you see me use wet glue, a combination of wet glue and score tape here. And the reason is it depends on what I'm gluing down and the amount of dry time it needs. So if it's something like this where I'm adhering several things kind of overlapping, I like the score tape because it adheres immediately. But score tape is a little bit more expensive. So if it's something like that pocket, that solo pocket that went in the middle there, then I try to use wet glue. Like on all of the pages, I used wet glue and just burnished it down. And wet glue is a lot more economical, but score tape does dry and hold a lot faster. So, and then there were cases like with the magnets there that I did use a combination of the score tape and wet glue, just so I could get the immediate hold and then kind of like the extra strong hold at the same time. So you can see I just did 3 pages on each side, and then I'm going to kind of have them overlap each other there in the middle. And then I have that closure. And I'm going to come in and add a little strip on that very back page where you can see all of the white from where I glued it down. I'm just going to cover that up, add a little bit of extra color there, and kind of just make it look a little more finished. I will do that on both sides. And I don't have an exact measurement for this because I think I had to wing it depending on like what, it was a little bit different from both sides. I was just trying to make sure that there was a little bit of a white border. It's just shy of 1/2 inch wide by 6 inches tall. So there's my album. I have some pockets, a waterfall, several pages. And if you would like to see the finished album, like I said, I still need to embellish it. If you want to see the finished album, please check out the Smash Those Small Paper Pads collab video at the end of this month. Thank you so much for your time, and hope you all have a very crafty day.